Hello, David Rissy for the Bond Experience. Welcome back. All right, so maybe you've decided that you wanted to start your own James Bond channel, your own James Bond brand, in essence. Maybe you've wanted to always start an Instagram or be a part of the Instagram storytelling. Maybe you're doing YouTube or Facebook or TikTok. Really doesn't matter the platform. You decided today is the day that you wanted to start your own James Bond channel. And what I thought I would do in this video is share just 7 of my top hints, my tools of the trade, if you will, that I have found incredibly impactful and helpful in creating the Bond experience. So many years ago when I started the Bond experience, I had no idea where the journey was going to take me, or much of this would be the result, even you watching today, etc. But I want to share these tips with you. Now, I have to mention the tips that I'm going to share with you, these 7 items, can actually be applied in your everyday life. It can be used at work. It can be used in relationships. It can be used with your family. It has some wide sweeping generalities to it, but trust me, if applied, they work. Now, one morning I got up and I decided to make this video because I have a lot of people ask me from time to time, hey David, I've either want to start a channel or I have started a channel and it just hasn't engaged the way I would have liked it, or my expectations would have been set, or more importantly, I'm just not where I want to be in the world of these Bond channels. So I've given the advice, but here it is organized in a very simple way. So let's start off. First of all, and this is important, and we'll count backwards. Let's say number 7. Have a hook or a focus. What do I mean by this? I see so many channels that become very general, and there's nothing wrong with that. If you want to be a general content creator, hats off to you. But it's important to have a unique proposition, what people call a unique value proposition, or a UVP. And that is what makes you different or special, what sets you not so much above the rest, but separated from the rest. For example, maybe it's your geography. Dutch Bond fan is a great example of this. Jeroen has a great channel, but you know, he's Dutch. It says it in the name. Mine, for example, I decided that I was going to have a heavy product marketing and sartorial lean. And because of that, 75–80% of my channel has that lean to it. I do other things in a more general capacity, but I do sort of have that. In addition, my hook, if you will, is that it's pretty raw. You know, I mess up, I edit things badly, or I don't edit them at all. I just talk, you know, as if you were in the room and we're having a conversation and you have a drink and I have a drink. And, you know, this whole, again, trying to be my authentic self in these conversations without the glitz and glamour of high production. I've had highly edited videos in production in the past, and for some reason, people like the rawness of this. You know, it's not perfect. I mess up and I'm human, I'm fallible, and maybe it makes me a little bit more relatable, more approachable, but that in and of itself is a hook and a focus. So find your hook and focus. You know, if it's that you just look at the Frugal Bond stuff, look at the Frugal Bond stuff. If you like James Bond shoes only, call it James Bond foot fetish. I don't care. I mean, just find something that you relate to. Find something that's hooked and a focus, and this way people can then identify you with that relatable moment. Super important. All right, number 6. Doing a countdown. That was number 7. Now we're doing number 6. Tell a story. I'm begging you. At the end of the day, and you've seen this, and again, it's not to take anybody down, that, you know, we talk about ramblings, and ramblings are fine, but they are ramblings. You know, just this sort of wayward action of different thoughts. But people engage with stories. We are born. We've been bred as human beings since the beginning of time on cave walls to tell stories, to learn, to engage through storytelling. So why would we stop in this year that we're experiencing? We wouldn't. So find out before you start to put together your channel, which is a brand in essence, what is your story? And for each video, or I know it's work, but for each picture that you put out there, tell a mini story. It could be one sentence long. This is what's happening in this picture. This is how it made me feel. What do you think of this? And the story should try to engage the people. I see people do these kind of like stories that I have no idea what it is, or worse, they'll put a picture up and I'm like trying to guess, and is it art? Is it supposed to be interpretive? Tell a story. If nothing else, content creators are storytellers, and the best ones are. Look at Calvin Dyson. Look at Joe Darlington. They know what their story is. They create an arc. There are peaks and valleys, and it's like good old Pixar storytelling. You start at the end and work your way, and you create a story. Tell a story. Okay, that was 6. Now we're on to number 5. And it's an important one, but not all of you are going to do it, and that's totally fine. Zig when they zag. Zig when they zag. David, you're losing your marbles. What are you talking about? No, this is what I mean by this. When there's a bit of Bond news, or a particularly popular Bond image, or a Bond alumni's birthday, what happens? Every Bond channel shares the same news, the same image, the same thing. So what happens is all of those pieces of information, all those pieces of content get neutralized. It becomes white noise because you're seeing the same thing so much. So your channel, if you're doing this, isn't standing out. So I zig when they zag. What I mean by that is if they're saying happy birthday to Ursula Andress, on that day, I will probably put a different story or a different piece of information. I may even put something about Ursula Andress, but it may be something about her bikini, or it might be a sartorial moment. So it might still have that engagement, but I want to put something very different. And I do this a lot. And what I see especially is my Instagram, a little secret. My Instagram has grown very significantly in the last 2 years because of this zig when they zag moment. Doing something unique as a Bond channel from the other Bond channels, when everybody's doing the same thing on a particular day, really makes you stand out. It makes you stand out to people, but it also makes you stand out in the search engines. And from an organic search standpoint, all ships raise when you do that. So zig when they zag. Okay, the next one is, and this is such a simple one, and it's so specific and tactical, but it's important. And I didn't learn this until later in my channel. This is from trial and error. If you're on YouTube, or even if you're just doing a Reels on Instagram, create a compelling thumbnail. Now, this may be a dumb moment, like, well, what, I'm going to create a boring thumbnail? I'm just going to have like a white screen? Or hear me out. Thumbnails are as important, if not more important, than the title of your video. Certainly than the content or the description of your video. And that is because in this very busy world that we live in, you have nanoseconds to attract people. It's like 1, 2. And so if your thumbnail is too busy, too many things going on, words and images and, oh, look there, and it becomes this little mini novel. Maybe to you it describes your video very well, but it doesn't attract somebody. They don't want to engage. They're not compelled or intrigued. So create intriguing thumbnails. For example, questions. Do you want to know the top 10 blah, 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 blah? Do you want to know the top 7 ways to create a successful Bond channel? Just a question, something compelling, curiosity. Top this, most important, these types of superlative statements, and then the imagery has to be simple. Can it be you? Yes, it can absolutely and probably should be some aspect of you. Again, Bond Report, a whole series of people do this very well, where there's a little picture of them and then a big picture that supports what the video's about. That's what you want. You want a lot of brightness. You want to brighten your picture up. You want a lot of white space if possible. All these different aspects. And because of that, very simply, what's going to happen is you're going to intrigue, you're going to create curiosity, and that is why a compelling thumbnail is so important. Okay, we're on to the next one. And I'm kind of loosening up a little bit for this one because it is so important, and I'm looking at you. It is so important. It's something called the law of incremental accumulation. And I did not invent this. The whole idea is that small moments lead up to big impacts. And this is not one you want to fast forward to. In fact, if you remember only one of these, I want you to remember this one. There are so many bond channels out there that put out their bond channel, and within weeks, they get frustrated. They're like, where is everyone? why aren't I getting engagements? Or why am I not being invited to events and parties? And, why aren't the brands supporting me, sending me things? It's this whole idea that new channels that only have a year under their belt or less or more, quite frankly, they're the ones that are frustrated and they lose patience and they're like, well, why aren't I at that top echelon of a bond channel? And the whole idea is that we've got to be patient and we've got to recognize that the small incremental things that happen to us build up over time. And that's why my channel, for example, which happened way back in 2009, 10, something like this. Look, I've had it for 20 plus years and things have built over time. My relationships with the brands have been built over time. That's not something that is quickly done. You may get introduced at a party or event to alumni or to a brand, but building those relationships, the really strong ones that are meaningful, they do take time. And the relationships that we all have in the bond community, this whole idea of trust and what to expect out of a channel, that happens in small incremental moments. It's why the mantra of the bond experience is living like bond one moment at a time. Living like bond one moment at a time. It could be the smallest moment. It will be the smallest moments, and you've got to be satisfied with that. The biggest degradation, the biggest breakdown of any bond channel that I've seen, and thus obviously the creators that are part of that, comes from not feeling relevant or not feeling as important as they believe they should feel. And that's because they're not satisfied with this accumulation, if you will. And that's why one of the points, one of the little tags that I have to put out there is, do this channel for you. Don't do it to get a product. Don't get it to get the brand's notice. Don't get it to get fame and notoriety, because that's really difficult too. Do it for you. Do it for your pleasure, your creativity, that you need a way to flex the muscles of creativity and the strength of the content that you want to put out there. Do it for you. Don't do it for Eon. Don't do it for David. Don't do it for the bond community. Don't do it for clubs. Do it for you as an individual, and then you will never, ever be disappointed. You are the only one that you are here to impress. And I mean this. I know it sounds like a very kumbaya moment, but again, I've seen it as a root of success in taking these brands forward and keeping the level of passion and excitement. The final one, the number one thing that I will tell you, and it's been extremely helpful, especially in losing my embarrassment gene of why I can get up in front of a lot of people and do what I do and not feel embarrassed. When you do a channel, whether you've had a channel for years or you just started one, dance like nobody's watching. Dance. Do your bond channel, do your content creation, do all of that, do your infotainment as if nobody's watching. Because once things start to infest your head that you're trying to impress these people or you're trying to neutralize these naysayers, and you start doing what you're doing, your impetus for doing these things is for somebody else, it all breaks down. Because then you're at the whim and mercy of other people other than you. And I just said, do it for you. So if you're going to do it for yourself, dance like nobody's watching, because In the beginning, nobody's watching. And that's okay. It's okay. It's okay if eventually you build enough following that some people are watching, but maybe not as many as you think. And suddenly you're like, well, hold on a second. Why are they and I am not? And then you're making it about somebody else. Fixate on yourself. Have a hook and focus. Tell a story. Zig when they zag. Create a compelling thumbnail. The law of incremental accumulation has to be about your world and your moments. Do it for you and then dance like nobody's watching. Trust me, if you do these 7 things, if you do them consistently and with discipline and with honesty, what's going to happen is your channel, you're going to get more pleasure out of it. And the relevancy, the relatability, all those things that you're tacking on are going to come into play. So there you go. Hope you enjoyed this. Had to share those things with you. In the meantime, this is David Zaritsky for the Bond Experience. We'll see you all real soon. Take care. Thanks for watching this episode. If you want to be up on the latest from the Bond Experience, just click on this subscribe and subscribe to our channel. You're going to get all the latest and greatest information, plus some exclusive content. And by the way, speaking of content, here's something especially for you, just because we know you. Talk to you soon.